You think you know power. Power isn't the loud suit you wear or the volume of your voice. It's the silence you command when the world tries to make you small. When Jordan Maxwell, a woman worth $3 billion, was told to wait outside like an unruly child by an airline manager who thought her limited edition streetwear was from a discount bin, she didn't scream. She didn't make a scene. She simply checked her watch. 5 minutes. That's all it took to turn a routine flight into a corporate bloodbath. But the firing was just the beginning. What happened after the twisted, brutal, real-life karma that hunted that manager down years later is the part usually left out of the headlines. Buckle up, because this flight is about to get turbulent. The rain at JFK International Airport was relentless, hammering against the floor-to-ceiling glass of Terminal 4 like thousands of tiny, angry fists. It was a miserable Tuesday in November, the kind of day that seeped into your bones and made the fluorescent lights of the departure hall feel particularly aggressive. Jordan Maxwell stood near the curb, her breath misting in the cold air as her driver, a stoic man named Thomas, pulled her luggage from the trunk of the blacked-out Escalade. "You sure you don't want me to walk you in?" "Ms. Maxwell?" Thomas asked, his brow furrowed with concern. He knew today was critical. He knew about the merger. "I'm fine, Thomas. It's just a commercial flight," Jordan said, adjusting the hood of her oversized beige sweatshirt. To the untrained eye, she looked like a tired college student or perhaps a backup dancer for a touring artist. In reality, the sweatshirt was a cashmere blend from Loro Piana, costing more than the Honda Civic idling behind them, and the beat-up duffel bag over her shoulder was vintage Goyard, passed down from her grandfather. "Just get the car serviced while I'm in London," she added, offering him a warm, genuine smile. "And go home to your wife. It's late. Safe travels." "Boss?" Jordan turned and pushed through the revolving doors, instantly hit by the wall of humidity and the cacophony of travel anxiety. She kept her head down. She preferred it this way. In the boardroom of Maxwell Haven Logistics, she was a shark sharp, terrifying, and impeccably dressed in bespoke tailoring. But here in transit, she wanted to be invisible. Her private Gulfstream G650 was currently grounded in Teterboro for a mandatory avionics upgrade. It was bad timing. She had an emergency board meeting in London with British Petroleum executives regarding a sustainable fuel contract, a deal worth 9 figures. She had to fly commercial. She had booked a ticket on Stratum Airlines, the carrier that marketed itself as the epitome of sky luxury. She held a ticket for the Residence, their ultra-exclusive first-class suite that came with a private butler and a shower spa. It cost $24,000 one way. As she navigated the sea of travelers, Jordan's phone buzzed. It was David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, a personal friend. "Jordan, just checking in. The London team is nervous. They think you're going to pull the plug on the deal." She typed back quickly with one hand. "Tell them to relax." "David, I'm on my way. I'll smooth it over dinner at the Shard. Landing at 8 a.m. She slipped the phone back into her pocket and approached the exclusive check-in area, marked Stratum Elite/First Class Only. The area was cordoned off by velvet ropes and guarded by a podium that looked more like a pulpit. There was no line, just a pristine white carpet and the smell of white tea and time being pumped through diffusers. Behind the counter stood a woman who looked like she had been carved out of ice, tapping furiously on a keyboard. Next to her, leaning against the back wall with an air of bored arrogance, was a man in a suit that was a little too tight, checking his reflection in the glass signage. His name tag read, Preston Galloway, Senior Terminal Manager. Jordan approached the podium. She was exhausted. She hadn't slept in 20 hours. She just wanted her boarding pass, a glass of champagne, and the lie-flat bed. "Good evening," Jordan said softly, placing her passport on the high counter. The woman didn't look up. She kept typing. Jordan waited. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. The silence stretched, awkward and pointed. "Excuse me," Jordan said, slightly louder. "Checking in for the flight to London." Finally, the woman stopped typing. She slowly lifted her head, her eyes scanning Jordan from the hood of her sweatshirt down to her sneakers. Her lip curled slightly, a micro-expression of disgust that Jordan had seen 1,000 times before. "This is the first-class check-in. Miss," the woman said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Economy and Economy Plus are down the hall. To the left. You'll see the long line. You can't miss it." Jordan sighed. "I know where I am. I'm flying first. The name is Maxwell." The woman didn't reach for the passport. Instead, she looked past Jordan, over her shoulder, as if expecting the real passenger to appear. Preston, the manager, pushed himself off the wall. He walked over, his gait heavy with self-importance. He was a man in his late 40s, with thinning hair combed severely to the side, and a watch that looked like a Rolex butt. To Jordan's expert eye, was clearly a high-end replica. "Is there a problem here, Janice?" Preston asked, not looking at Jordan. "This individual is insisting she's in the wrong line." "Sir, I've directed her to economy." Preston turned his gaze to Jordan. He didn't see the CEO of a global logistics empire. He saw a young black woman in a hoodie. He saw an intrusion. He saw someone who didn't belong in his pristine, white-carpeted kingdom. "Miss," Preston said, his voice booming with authority. "You need to clear the area. We have VIP clients arriving any minute, and we can't have loitering. The automated kiosks for economy are perfectly functional." "I'm a VIP client," Jordan said, her voice dropping an octave, becoming colder. "My name is Jordan Maxwell. If you would simply type it into your system, you would see that I've bought out the entire front row." Preston laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Bought out the front row. Listen, I don't know what kind of TikTok prank this is, or if you're trying to sneak into the lounge to snag free food, but it's not happening on my watch. I've been running this terminal for 12 years. I know what our first-class clientele looks like. And what do they look like? Preston." Jordan asked. The question hung in the air, sharp as a razor. Preston stepped closer, invading her personal space. "They look like people who can afford to be here. They don't look like you." Jordan felt the heat rise up her neck, but she forced it down. Emotional regulation was her superpower. It was how she survived hostile takeovers and navigated boardrooms full of men, just like Preston. "Scan the passport," Jordan said, sliding the document forward again. "If I'm not in the system, I will leave. But if you refuse to do your job, we are going to have a very different conversation." Janice, the desk agent, looked at Preston nervously. "Sir, maybe we should just check." Preston held up a hand to silence her. He picked up Jordan's passport, holding it by the corner as if it were contaminated. He didn't scan it. He opened it, glanced at the photo, and then looked back at her. "Passport looks new," he scoffed. "Maybe too new. We've had a lot of fraudulent documents lately. Identity theft rings trying to use stolen miles. Are you accusing me of fraud? Jordan asked, her eyes narrowing. I'm saying I have the right to verify the legitimacy of this travel, Preston said, closing the passport and shockingly slipping it into his pocket. And I can't do that with you standing here blocking the carpet. He pointed toward the sliding glass doors that led back to the chaotic, noisy general terminal. Wait outside, Preston commanded. Jordan blinked. Excuse me. You heard me. Wait outside, in the general concourse. I need to take this to the back office and run a full security verification with the TSA liaison. It could take 20 minutes, maybe 30. I can't have you cluttering up the elite zone while I do it. You are taking my passport into a back room. Jordan stepped forward. Absolutely not. You scan it here, in front of me. Security protocol. Preston shouted, causing several heads in the nearby business class line to turn. If you do not comply, I will have airport police remove you for creating a disturbance. Do you want to go to London, or do you want to go to a holding cell in Queens, your choice? The sheer audacity was breathtaking. It was a power play, pure and simple. He wanted to humiliate her. He wanted to see her beg or explode so he could justify his bias. Jordan looked at Janice. The woman looked down, terrified of her boss. Jordan looked at Preston. He was smirking. He thought he had won. He thought he was the gatekeeper of the sky, and he had successfully barred the intruder. Fine, Jordan said softly. The smirk on Preston's face widened. Good girl. Now, outside. Beyond the glass. Jordan turned around. She walked off the white carpet, past the velvet ropes, and through the automatic doors. The noise of the general terminal rushed back in crying babies, announcements, the squeak of luggage wheels. She stood near a trash can, just on the other side of the glass. Inside. She saw Preston pull her passport out of his pocket. He didn't go to a back office. He didn't call the TSA. He tossed it onto the counter, laughed, and said something to Janice. They were mocking her. He was making her wait just to prove he could. Jordan took a deep breath. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She didn't call the police. She didn't call her lawyer. She opened her contacts and scrolled to S. Sir Richard Branson. Or rather, a fictional equivalent for this story's legal safety. Let's call him Sir Alistair Sterling. Alistair Sterling was the majority shareholder of the conglomerate that owned Stratum Airlines. He was also a man who owed Jordan a massive favor after she had used her logistics fleet to save his winery from a wildfire disaster in Napa Valley 2 years prior. She pressed call. It rang once, twice. Jordan. Alistair's voice was groggy. It was 2 a.m. in London. Is everything all right? You're usually the one scolding me for calling at ungodly hours. Alistair, I'm at JFK, Jordan said, her voice calm, devoid of the rage burning in her chest. I'm trying to fly Stratum to come see you and the BP team, but I've run into a personnel issue. What kind of issue is the flight delayed? I can send the jet. No, Jordan said, watching through the glass as Preston leaned over the counter, flirting with a new passenger, a tall white man in a suit, and instantly checking him in with a smile. My jet is grounded. I bought a residence ticket, but your senior terminal manager, a Mr. Preston Galloway, has confiscated my passport, accused me of fraud, and ordered me to wait outside by the trash cans because he doesn't believe I look like a first-class passenger. There was a silence on the other end of the line, a cold, heavy silence. He did what? Alistair asked, his voice losing all traces of sleep. He told me to wait outside. He's currently holding my passport hostage. I've been standing here for... Jordan checked her Patek Philippe watch. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Jordan, put the phone on speaker and walk back inside. No. Alistair, I don't want to talk to him. I want you to fix it. I want to know why I spend $3 million a year on corporate travel with your airline, only to be treated like a criminal by a middle manager with a fake Rolex. 5 minutes, Alistair said, his voice trembling with fury. Give me exactly 1 minute to patch in the Vice President of North American Operations. Do not hang up. Jordan watched Preston. He was laughing again, pointing at her through the glass while talking to the other passenger. He was treating her like an exhibit in a zoo. A moment later, a new voice joined the call. A terrified voice. Miss Maxwell, this is Arthur Hemlock, VP of Operations. Sir Alistair is on the line as well. I am so sorry. I am looking at the shift log right now. Preston Galloway is the manager on duty. That's him, Jordan said. Okay. Alistair's voice cut in, sharp as a guillotine. Jordan, Arthur tells me that Stratum Airlines operates on a strict policy of hospitality. It seems Mr. Galloway has forgotten who signs his paycheck. Arthur, who is the highest-ranking officer physically at JFK right now. That would be the regional director, Sarah Jenkins. She's in the admin tower, Terminal 4. Get her down there, Alistair commanded. Now. And Jordan. Yes, Alistair. Go back inside. Put the phone on the counter. I want to have a word with Mr. Galloway. Jordan hung up the call, but kept the line open on the screen. She took a deep breath, smoothed her hoodie, and walked back toward the automatic doors. Preston saw her coming. He rolled his eyes and stepped out from behind the podium, marching to meet her before she could cross the velvet rope. I told you to wait outside. Preston barked, his face turning red. I haven't verified your documents yet if you come one step closer. I'm calling the cops. Jordan didn't stop. She walked right up to him, her eyes locking onto his. I'm done waiting. Preston, she said. She slammed her phone down on the high white counter. The screen was glowing. Someone wants to speak to you. Preston looked at the phone, then at her, confused. Who is this, your boyfriend? Your pimp? He laughed at his own joke. Pick it up, Jordan whispered. Preston scoffed. He picked up the phone, holding it to his ear with exaggerated disdain. Yeah, who is this? You're interrupting a security operation. Jordan watched the color drain from Preston's face. It didn't happen gradually. It happened instantly. 1 second he was flushed with arrogance. The next, he was as pale as the paper in the printer. Sir, Preston stammered. His hand began to shake. Sir Alistair, I didn't. He listened. His knees actually buckled slightly. He grabbed the counter for support. No, sir. I was just following protocol. She looked. Preston looked up at Jordan. His eyes were wide, filled with a primal terror. He wasn't looking at a girl in a hoodie anymore. He was looking at the executioner. Yes, sir. Right away. Sir. Preston handed the phone back to Jordan with a trembling hand. He looked like he was going to vomit. He wants to talk to you, Preston whispered. Jordan put the phone to her ear. I'm here. Sarah Jenkins is 2 minutes away, Alistair said. But I don't want to wait 2 minutes. Jordan, do me a favor. Hand the phone back to Preston. I forgot to tell him one last thing. Jordan smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. He wants you again. Preston. Preston shook his head, pleading silently. but he took the phone. Sir Jordan couldn't hear what Alistair said, but she saw the result. Preston dropped the phone. It clattered onto the expensive counter. "I'm fired," he whispered, his voice cracking. The silence that followed Preston's whispered question, "I'm fired," was heavier than the humid air outside the terminal doors. It was a vacuum, sucking the arrogance right out of the room. For a moment, the bustling sounds of JFK Terminal 4 seemed to fade into a dull roar. The only thing Preston could hear was the blood rushing in his ears and the faint, rhythmic clicking of high heels approaching from the direction of the TSA checkpoint. It was a fast, aggressive cadence. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. Jordan didn't answer him. She didn't need to. She simply retrieved her phone from the counter, wiped the screen on her hoodie, and slid it back into her pocket. She looked at Preston not with triumph, but with pity. It was the look a lion gives a gazelle that has foolishly wandered into the den, not angry, just acknowledging the inevitable laws of nature. You can't just. Preston stammered, his face cycling through shades of red and purple. He looked around for support. He looked at the tall white man he had just checked in, the one he had shared a laugh with. The man suddenly found the ceiling very interesting, turning his back to pretend to reorganize his carry-on. "Janice!" Preston barked, desperate for an ally. Tell them she was belligerent. Tell them she refused to show ID. Janice, the woman who had earlier looked at Jordan with such disdain, was now staring at her computer screen with the intensity of a bomb disposal technician. Her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't type. She knew the ship was sinking, and she had no intention of drowning with the captain. I was just typing. "Preston," Janice mumbled, her voice barely audible. "I didn't see anything." "You liar!" Preston screamed, his veneer of professional control shattering completely. "You sat right there and laughed when I told her to wait by the trash. Mr. Galloway." The voice cut through the air like a whip. Preston froze. Sarah Jenkins, the regional director for Stratum Airlines, stood at the entrance of the first-class zone. She was a formidable woman in a navy pantsuit, flanked by 2 uniformed Port Authority police officers and a man in a dark suit who looked like corporate security. Sarah was out of breath. She had clearly run from the administration tower. Her eyes scanned the scene, the frozen passengers, the terrified desk agent, the trembling manager, and finally, the calm figure in the beige hoodie. Sarah didn't look at Preston. She walked straight to Jordan. "Ms. Maxwell," Sarah said, extending a hand that was steady, despite the chaos. "I am Sarah Jenkins, on behalf of Stratum Airlines, and personally, I am horrified. There are no words sufficient enough, but I am going to try to find them." Jordan shook her hand. "Hello, Sarah. Your boss speaks highly of you." "Sir Alistair briefed me on the way down," Sarah said, her voice tight. She turned slowly to face Preston. Preston had shrunk against the back wall. He looked small. The power he wielded so carelessly just 10 minutes ago, the power to make people wait, to make them feel small, to judge their worth by their clothes, had evaporated. "Sarah," Preston started, his voice a wheedling whine. "Let's be reasonable. This is a misunderstanding. This woman refused to follow security protocols. I was protecting the lounge. You know how I am about standards." "Standards," Sarah repeated, her voice deceptively calm. "You confiscated the passport of one of our most valuable global partners. You profiled her based on her attire. You violated 3 separate federal statutes regarding passenger identification handling by taking her documents out of her sight. And you told the CEO of Maxwell Haven Logistics to wait outside like a stray dog. Sarah took a step closer to him. And then, she continued, her voice dropping to a lethal whisper, when you were given a direct order by the owner of this airline to rectify the situation, you mocked him. You laughed. I didn't know it was him, Preston pleaded. I thought it was a prank. She looks like nobody. The entire lounge gasped. Even Janice flinched. Jordan stepped forward. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. And that, Preston, is exactly the problem. You think you get to decide who is a somebody and who is a nobody based on a hoodie and a skin color? You think dignity is something you award to people who look like you. Sarah nodded to the corporate security officer. Mr. Galloway, hand over your badge. Your access to Stratum Airlines property is revoked immediately. You are terminated for cause, effective this second. Preston clutched his lanyard. You can't do this. I've been here 12 years. I run this terminal. The union will hear about this. The union protects employees. Mr. Galloway, Sarah said coldly. It doesn't protect liabilities. And right now, you are a walking, talking lawsuit. Hand it over. With trembling fingers, Preston unclipped his badge. He threw it on the counter. This is ridiculous, he spat, trying to regain a shred of dignity. I was doing my job. You'll regret this. The terminal will fall apart without me. We'll take that risk, Sarah said. She gestured to the police officers. Please escort Mr. Galloway to the public curb. He is no longer a ticketed passenger or an employee. If he resists, he is trespassing. The 2 officers stepped forward. One of them, a burly man who had clearly been watching the interaction with distaste, took Preston by the elbow. It wasn't a gentle grip. Let's go, a boss, the officer said. As Preston was marched past the velvet ropes, past the white carpet he had so aggressively guarded, he looked back one last time. He saw Jordan Maxwell standing there. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't gloating. She was just watching. It was the most humiliating moment of his life. He was being waited outside by the universe. As the automatic doors slid shut behind him, the silence in the first-class check-in returned. But the tension wasn't gone. Jordan turned her attention to the counter, to Janice. Janice was typing furiously again. Her head so low her chin was touching her chest. She was trying to become part of the furniture. And her, Jordan asked softly. Sarah looked at Janice. Janice, pack your things. You're suspended pending a full HR investigation into your role in this. Janice looked up, tears streaming down her face. But I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. It was all Preston. Exactly, Jordan said, her voice cutting through the woman's tears. You didn't do anything. You watched him humiliate me. You watched him profile me. And you sat there and typed. Silence is complicity. Janice, you were his audience. Without an audience, bullies like Preston lose half their power. Janice opened her mouth to argue, but Sarah cut her off. Log out. Janice, now. Jordan turned to Sarah. I appreciate your swift action, Sarah, but I have a flight to catch, and I believe I have a seat in the residence waiting for me. Of course. Ms. Maxwell, Sarah said, visibly relieved. I will personally escort you to the gate. We have held the plane for you. The captain has been notified of a VIP late arrival. Jordan nodded. She picked up her duffel bag. Let's go. I have a feeling this flight is going to be a long one. As they walked through the terminal, Jordan couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Preston was a symptom, not the disease. You don't get a manager that arrogant without a culture that feeds him. She was about to step into a metal tube at 40,000 feet with a crew that had worked with Preston for years. She checked her phone. A text from Alistair Handel, it however you see fit. Jordan, burn the forest if you have to. Just grow something better in the ashes. She smiled. She might just have to do that. The walk to gate B42 was a blur of apologies. Sarah Jenkins was trying her best, offering flight vouchers, miles, champagne, even a personal car service in London. Jordan politely declined all of it. She didn't want perks. She wanted competence. When they arrived at the gate, the boarding process was already finished. The jet bridge was empty. The gate agents looked nervous as Sarah flashed her badge and ushered Jordan through. They stepped onto the plane. The Stratum Airlines Airbus A380 was a marvel of engineering. The entrance to the upper deck, where the residents and first class were located, looked more like a hotel lobby than an aircraft. Soft, ambient lighting, fresh flowers, and the scent of expensive leather filled the cabin. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Maxwell," Sarah said. "I'll leave you in the capable hands of our cabin service director. Charles, I have to go back and deal with the paperwork." "Thank you, Sarah," Jordan said. Sarah exited, leaving Jordan standing in the galley. A man in a pristine charcoal uniform appeared from the cockpit area. This was Charles. He was tall, silver-haired, with the kind of polished, patrician look that screamed old money service. He looked like a butler from a period drama. He looked at Jordan, then he looked at her hoodie, then he looked at her duffel bag. It was subtle, much more subtle than Preston, but it was there. The micro-flinch, the tightening of the jaw, the slight hesitation before the smile was plastered on. "Ms. Maxwell?" Charles asked, his tone implying that perhaps she was lost. "That's me," Jordan said, handing him her boarding pass. Charles took it with 2 fingers. "Ah, the residence. Seat 1A. We were informed of a delay due to a security issue at check-in." He said security issue with a tone that suggested Jordan was the security issue. "Something like that," Jordan said breezily, stepping past him into the cabin. "Allow me to take your bag," Charles said, reaching for the vintage Goyard. "I've got it," Jordan said. She walked into the residence. It was spectacular. A 3-room suite in the sky, complete with a living room, a separate bedroom with a double bed, and an ensuite shower. It was luxury incarnate. Jordan tossed her bag onto the leather sofa and sat down, exhaling a long breath. She just wanted a glass of water and silence, but the energy in the cabin was wrong. She could hear whispering in the galley. The curtains were drawn, but they weren't soundproof. "Preston texted me," a male voice said. It sounded like the captain. Said she got him fired. Just like that. Snapped her fingers and Jenkins walked him out. "Over what?" Charles's voice asked. "She looks like she rolled out of a dorm room. Preston probably just asked for ID. You know how he is. He's a stickler. But he's good people." "It's these diversity hires," the captain muttered. "Entitled. They think because they have a little money they own the place. Preston's got 3 kids in private school. He's going to lose his pension over a hoodie." "Watch yourself," Charles warned, though his voice lacked any real reprimand. "She's in 1A. Just get us in the air so we can get this over with. I'll give her the bare minimum service. No caviar set up unless she asks. Let's see if she even knows what it is." Jordan sat in the plush leather seat, her blood turning to ice. It wasn't just Preston. It was the captain. It was the head of service. It was a rot that went from the check-in desk all the way to the cockpit. They were friends. They protected each other. They viewed her not as a customer, but as an usurper, a diversity hire with a little money. Jordan Maxwell, who had built a logistics empire from a single warehouse in Detroit into a global behemoth, who had graduated top of her class at Wharton, who employed 40,000 people, was being discussed like a charity case by a glorified driver and a waiter in the sky. She stood up. She walked out of the suite, pulled back the curtain, and stepped into the galley. Charles and the captain, a heavy-set man with 4 stripes on his shoulder, named Captain Miller, jumped. They had been leaning close together, conspiring. "Is there a problem, Ms. Maxwell?" Charles asked, smoothing his jacket, his fake smile returning instantly. "Would you like a glass of Dom Perignon?" "No, Charles," Jordan said. "I don't want champagne. I want to know why Captain Miller is worried about Preston's pension." The colour drained from Captain Miller's face. "Excuse me." "I heard you," Jordan said, her voice steady. "I heard you call me a diversity hire. I heard you say I'm entitled. And I heard you, Charles, say you were going to give me the bare minimum service because you don't think I know what caviar is." The silence in the galley was deafening. The other flight attendants, 2 younger women, were staring wide-eyed from the back. "Ms. Maxwell, you must have misheard," Charles began, his sophisticated accent slipping. "We were merely discussing operational—" "Stop," Jordan said. She held up a hand. "Do not insult my intelligence. I didn't mishear. You were gossiping about a passenger. You were defending a man who was fired for racial profiling, and you were conspiring to provide substandard service based on your own bias." Captain Miller puffed out his chest. "Now listen here, young lady. I am the commander of this aircraft. My job is to fly the plane safely. What I say in private conversation is none of your business. Preston Galloway is a friend of mine, and he's a damn good manager. If you got him fired because your feelings were hurt, that's on your conscience. But on this plane, I am the authority." It was the wrong thing to say. It was the spectacularly wrong thing to say. "You are the authority on flight mechanics and navigation," Jordan corrected him. "You are not the authority on my dignity. And you are certainly not the authority on who flies this plane." Jordan turned around and walked back to her suite. She didn't sit down. She picked up her phone. She called Alistair again. "Jordan, are you in the air?" "No, Alistair, and I'm not going to be, not with this crew." "What happened?" "The cancer wasn't just in the terminal," Jordan said, loud enough for the crew in the galley to hear. "Your Captain Miller and your service director Charles are currently lamenting the firing of Preston. The captain called me a diversity hire. Charles planned to withhold service because he thinks I'm too uncultured to understand caviar. They are creating a hostile environment before the wheels are even up." Alistair let out a long, weary sigh. It was the sound of a man who knew his bank account was about to take a hit, but who also knew he had no choice. "Put the phone on speaker. Jordan, walk back to the galley." For the second time that night, Jordan walked into a space where she wasn't wanted, holding a phone that acted as a judge's gavel. "Captain Miller," Jordan said. "The owner would like a word." She held the phone out. Captain Miller stared at it. He looked at Charles. The arrogance was starting to crack. replaced by the dawning realization that they had vastly underestimated the woman in the hoodie. "This is Captain Miller," he said gruffly. "Captain." Alistair's voice was like liquid nitrogen. "Pack your flight bag. You and Mr. Charles are relieved of duty." "Sir," Miller sputtered. "We are fully boarded. We have a slot time. You can't just—" "Who is going to fly the plane? I don't care if I have to fly it myself," Alistair shouted, his voice distorting over the speaker. "I will not have bigots operating my flagship aircraft. You have disgraced the uniform. Get off my plane, both of you." "But sir, the delay—" "The passengers," Charles interjected, his voice trembling. "The passengers will be compensated. The only thing I am worried about is the lawsuit I am going to face if Ms. Amport—" Maxwell records one more second of this interaction. "Get off." The line went dead. Jordan took her phone back. "You heard him. Bag. Door. Now." Captain Miller looked at Jordan with pure hatred. "You have no idea what you've done. You've delayed 300 people. You've ruined careers." "No, Captain," Jordan said, leaning in close. "You did that when you decided my money wasn't as green as everyone else's. Now, get out of my sight." The walk of shame was different this time. It wasn't through a terminal. It was through the cabin. Captain Miller and Charles had to grab their bags and walk past the confused first-class passengers, past the business-class cabin, and out the door where Sarah Jenkins was waiting, looking like she wanted to scream. The plane sat at the gate. The delay was announced. Crew change due to operational standards. It took 2 hours. 2 hours of sitting on the tarmac. Jordan stayed in her suite. She knew people were angry. She knew they were blaming the VIP in 1A. But then, something happened. A young flight attendant, one of the junior ones who had been in the galley, knocked on the door of the suite. Her name tag read, "Chloe, Ms. Maxwell." Chloe asked timidly. "Yes, Chloe." I just wanted to say thank you," Chloe whispered. She looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Charles, he's been horrible to us for years. He makes fun of the passengers. He harasses the junior staff. No one ever stands up to him because he's close with the pilots. What you did, no one else could have done that." Jordan looked at the young woman. She saw the relief in her eyes. "You're welcome, Chloe," Jordan said softly. "Now, how about we get that champagne? And maybe some for the economy cabin too?" "On my tab," Chloe smiled, a genuine, beaming smile. "Right away. Ms. Maxwell." As the new crew, a diverse, energetic team pulled from standby, boarded the plane, the atmosphere shifted. The heavy, judgmental air was gone. The plane felt lighter, but Jordan knew the war wasn't over. Preston and Miller were out, but they were angry men with friends, internet access, and a grudge. As the A380 finally roared down the runway, lifting into the dark, rainy sky over New York, Jordan watched the lights of the city fade. She closed her eyes. She had fired the management. She had delayed the flight. She had flexed her power. Now, the world was going to react, and the internet, as she knew all too well, was rarely kind to powerful black women who stood up for themselves. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. But if she had looked, she would have seen a notification from Twitter. A video had been uploaded. It was shaky footage from the terminal, filmed by a bystander. It showed Preston being escorted out by police. But the caption didn't tell the truth. The caption read, "Entitled celebrity. Karen gets beloved airport manager fired for asking to see ID. Police involved." Hashtag airport freakout. Hashtag justice for Preston. The video already had 50,000 views. The karma was coming. But first, Jordan Maxwell was going to have to survive the smear campaign. The flight to London was a masterclass in service recovery. The replacement crew, led by a sharp, empathetic purser named Elena Vivian, treated Jordan not just as a VIP, but as a human being who had been through a gauntlet. The champagne was vintage, the caviar was chilled to perfection, and the silence in the residence was absolute. Jordan slept for 7 hours. She disconnected from the world below. At 38,000 feet, wrapped in Egyptian cotton sheets, she was safe. She didn't know that while she dreamed. A digital hurricane was making landfall. The video uploaded by the bystander had mutated. It had been ripped, re-edited, and shared across TikTok, Twitter X, and Facebook. The clip was only 40 seconds long. It started after Preston had confiscated her passport. It showed Jordan slamming her phone on the counter. It showed her saying, "He wants you again. Preston." It showed the police escorting a crying man out of the terminal. It lacked context. It lacked the racial profiling. It lacked the sneering, "Wait outside" command by the time the Stratum Airlines A380 touched down at Heathrow. The hashtag airport Karen was trending #1 globally. The narrative was simple and inflammatory. A billionaire CEO threw a tantrum because she was asked for ID, and she used her wealth to crush a working-class father of 3. As the plane taxied to the gate, Jordan turned on her phone. It didn't just buzz, it convulsed. A flood of notifications froze the screen for a full minute. Texts from her PR team, her legal counsel, her mother, and random numbers she didn't recognize. "Don't check Twitter. Call me immediately. Samantha, VP of Communications. Board is freaking out. Stock is down 4% in pre-market. Caleb, CFO. They're saying you got him fired for doing his job. We need a statement now." Jordan felt a cold pit open in her stomach. She opened Twitter against Samantha's advice, the top comment on the viral video, with 200,000 likes. Read, "This is what's wrong with the elite. This poor guy is just trying to follow security protocols, and she destroys his life because she's inconvenienced for 5 minutes. Boycott Maxwell Haven." Another read, "Preston Galloway is a hero. He stood his ground against the woke mob. Someone start a GoFundMe for this patriot." The GoFundMe had already raised $150,000. Jordan stepped off the plane. The jet bridge was usually a quiet transition. But at the end of the tunnel, she could see flashes. Paparazzi. Vivian, the purser, stopped her. "Ms. Maxwell, security is waiting for you at the bottom of the stairs. They're going to take you out the tarmac exit. There's a crowd in arrivals." "A crowd?" Jordan asked, adjusting her sunglasses. "Reporters and some protesters. It's best if you don't engage." Jordan nodded, her face a mask of stone. She was being smuggled into London like a fugitive. The car ride to the Shard was tense. Jordan sat in the back of the armored Mercedes, conferencing with her crisis team in New York. "We need to release the full footage," Jordan said, her voice cutting through the panic on the line. "Stratum has CCTV. Alistair has the tapes." "Stratum is stonewalling," Samantha replied. "Their legal team is terrified of a privacy lawsuit from Preston. They're saying they need a subpoena to release employee records or surveillance footage. They're trying to protect themselves." "Get Alistair on the phone. He's not answering. He's in damage control with his own board. The airline is being boycotted by the anti-woke crowd." Jordan hung up. She was on her own. The meeting with British Petroleum was scheduled for 10 o'clock a.m. at Aqua Shard, the restaurant halfway up the skyscraper with panoramic views of London. Jordan walked in at 9:55 a.m. She had changed into a sharp, charcoal Alexander McQueen suit, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. She looked every inch the titan of industry. But the room was cold. The BP executives, 4 older white men and 1 woman, didn't stand up when she entered. Sir Julian Thorne, the lead negotiator, looked at his tablet, where the viral video was likely playing on a loop. "Ms. Maxwell," Thorne said, not offering his hand. "We were just discussing whether this meeting should be rescheduled." "Why is that?" Sir Julian, Jordan asked, taking her seat at the head of the table uninvited. She placed her leather portfolio on the glass surface. "Because," Thorne said, sliding his tablet across the table, "Maxwell Haven is currently the subject of a massive public relations disaster. We are a conservative company. Jordan, we cannot be seen doing business with a CEO who abuses her power to terrorize airport staff. The optics are toxic." Jordan looked at the tablet. She didn't touch it. She looked up at the men around the table. "You think I abused my power?" she asked softly. "The video is quite damning," another executive muttered. Jordan stood up. She walked over to the window, looking out at the grey, sprawling city of London. She needed to channel the same energy she had used in the terminal. "Gentlemen," she began, turning to face them. "That video shows the reaction. It does not show the catalyst. That man, Mr. Galloway, refused to scan my passport. He told me to wait outside by the trash cans because he decided, based on my hoodie, that I couldn't possibly afford a first-class ticket. He held my documents hostage. He profiled me." "That is a serious accusation," Thorne said, skepticism dripping from his voice. "Do you have proof? Because right now, the internet believes he is a martyr." "The truth is not a popularity contest," Jordan said, leaning her hands on the table. "And I am not here to win a Twitter poll. I am here to offer you a logistics network that will save BP £400 million a year in fuel transport costs. I am here because my ships are faster, my trains are more efficient, and my technology is 5 years ahead of the competition." She paused, locking eyes with Thorne. "If you want to kill this deal because of a 40-second video filmed by a stranger, go ahead, walk away. But when your competitors, Shell, Exxon, Chevron sign with me next week, and their margins improve by 15% while yours stagnate, do not call me. Do not ask for a meeting, because I will be the one making you wait outside." The silence in the room was absolute. Jordan had gambled everything. She had bet on her value over her reputation. Thorne stared at her. He was a businessman, first and last. He cared about the bottom line. And he knew she was right. Her logistics network was untouchable. Slowly, a smile crept onto Thorne's face. "You are a terrifying woman, Jordan Maxwell," he said. "I'm a businesswoman." "Sir Julian," she replied, sitting back down. "Now, let's talk about the fuel surcharge." She closed the deal. It took 4 hours of grueling negotiation, but she signed the contract, a 9-figure victory. But as she walked out of the Shard, victorious in business, she checked her phone. The internet hadn't moved on. It had gotten worse. Preston Galloway had just given an exclusive interview to a major cable news network. He was crying on camera. He claimed Jordan had called him racial slurs, a lie so bold it was breathtaking. He claimed he was about to lose his home. The hard karma hadn't hit him yet. In fact, he was winning. Jordan got into her car. She dialed Alistair Sterling again. This time, she didn't leave a voicemail. She sent a text. "I just closed the BP deal. I have $500 million in fresh capital. If you do not release the security tapes by noon tomorrow, I will use every penny of it to short Stratum Airlines stock until you are delisted. Try me." 3 dots appeared instantly. Jordan's threat to short-sell Stratum's stock was the nuclear option, and it worked by noon the next day. Stratum Airlines initiated a Level 1 internal inquiry. The atmosphere in the New York boardroom was suffocating as the security footage played. It was high definition, 4K vindication. The camera captured every microaggression, Jordan's polite approach, Preston's sneer, and the damning fact that he never even scanned her passport. But the audio was the executioner. The desk microphone, which Preston had arrogantly ignored, picked up his conversation with another passenger the moment Jordan walked outside. "Thinks she's special because of a hoodie. Watch me make her stand in the rain. I love taking out the trash." "He's a liability," Alistair said, via video link, his face pale. "Release it. All of it." Stratum didn't just fire Preston. They publicly disowned him to save their stock price. The unedited footage hit the internet like a bomb. The narrative shifted instantly. The viral Karen video was debunked, and the hashtag Justice for Preston hashtag vanished, replaced by hashtag Boycott Preston. The $150,000 GoFundMe was frozen for fraud. Desperate and delusional, Preston sued for wrongful termination, a fatal error that forced a legal discovery phase. Under oath, he crumbled. Admitting to a pattern of profiling he called gatekeeping, his text logs implicated Captain Miller and Charles, revealing a conspiracy to provide substandard service to certain demographics. The fallout was total. The FAA permanently grounded Captain Miller for safety violations found in the logs. Charles was blacklisted from the hospitality industry. Preston lost his lawsuit, his reputation, and his wife within the span of a week. Jordan didn't need to say a word. The truth had screamed loud enough for the whole world to hear. 5 years is a lifetime in the corporate world. Jordan Maxwell wasn't just a CEO anymore. She was an industry icon, her face gracing the cover of Time as Person of the Year. On a rainy Tuesday in Detroit, weather mirroring that fateful night at JFK, Jordan's private chauffeur fell ill. She hailed a premium rideshare to the Renaissance Center for the logistics gala of the year. The black SUV pulled up to the curb. The driver, a man in a frayed, ill-fitting suit, scrambled out to open her door with frantic, desperate energy. He looked aged beyond his years, his eyes hollowed by stress and sleepless nights. As he reached for her vintage Goyard bag, his hand trembled. He looked up, the rain plastering his thinning hair to his skull. Their eyes locked, the color drained from the driver's face. It was Preston. The arrogance was gone, eroded by years of unemployment and public shame. He wasn't the gatekeeper of the sky anymore. He was a gig worker, terrified of a 1-star rating. He froze, clutching the handle of the door, waiting for her to scream, to mock him, to get him fired again. Jordan didn't scream. She adjusted her diamond earrings, looking at him with a chilling indifference. She reached into her purse and pulled out a crisp $100 bill. "Keep the change," she said softly, pressing it into his shaking hand. "And Preston," he flinched. "Yes." "Ms. Maxwell." She gestured to the warm, glowing entrance of the hotel where the elite were gathering, the heavy glass doors reflecting the golden light. "You can't park here," she said, her voice devoid of malice but heavy with irony. "You'll have to wait outside." Jordan walked onto the red carpet, leaving him standing in the cold rain, holding her tip, exactly where he had once tried to put her. The universe had finally balanced its books. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Jordan Maxwell. It's a reminder that true power isn't about being loud. It's about being effective. It's about knowing your worth when the world tries to discount you. Preston Galloway learned the hard way that when you try to make someone else feel small, you only reveal how small you really are. Karma doesn't always hit instantly. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it lets you build your own trap, step by step, lie by lie, until you're the one standing in the rain, holding the bag. What do you think? Did Preston deserve his fate? Or was the lifetime of humiliation too harsh? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that the tables always turn. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.